I think that's part of the key liberal religious dream, that we all were prophets. So I want to talk about prophecy today. And I don't mean prophecy in the telling the future kind of way, but I'll get into that in a moment. The place I want to get to right away, though, is with a woman you don't know but could know. She's featured in Nicholas Kristof's book, Half the Sky. Her name is Usha Nayarane. She lives in India. She's of the untouchable class, a Dalit, but her parents scrimped and saved and put up away enough money that she could go to school. Not only to school, but to high school, and not just high school. She went to university. And at least in India, legally, there are no boundaries to education. So she was off to a great career. But her parents needed her at home for a while, and when she got back there, she discovered something. That a hooligan, a thug, basically a gangster by the name of, let me get the name right, Aku Yadav, had moved in with his gang and was extorting the village for everything they would give him. He had a number of thugs who would do what he said. We've heard about gangs before. You know what I mean. It happens all over the world. Well, Aku Yadav not only went around strong-arming people for money, he literally assaulted people. And one of the things they're very good at in India, if you're a really bad person, is rape. It's what they do because it creates less blood than murder, and it's just as effective in silencing people. And so he and his thugs would rape as many women as they could get a hold of and threaten the rest of the village. Now, Usha had been away from the village. She had gone to university. She's also a tall woman, I should point out, and she's not thin either. But Aku knew that he had to deal with this young woman, and so he pounded on her door one time and said he had to leave town or he would do terrible things for her, and she defied him. She kept the door braced, would not let him in, and when he yelled threatening things, she yelled right back. And when he threatened to burn the house down, she opened up the gas tap for their stove and said, "I'll blow it up before I let you burn it down." That was enough to scare him off, and so he backed down that day, but didn't back down long. But in the meantime, what had happened was she had stood up to this man no one else had stood up to. People had not been seeing that before, and the village gathered round and watched him beat on her door and watched her say, "No, no, no," and they were impressed that a woman was standing up. And so when he decided to leave, he turned around and there were suddenly 100 villagers looking at him. And I don't care how many thugs you got, 100 people's a lot of people. And they all had stones in their hands. And so he went to the police and begged to be arrested. And the police, who are often on the take in the small villages, because in untouchable villages, the police generally overlook crime there. The only time they care is if you pay them a bribe, unfortunately. And so they took him into custody for his own safety. And when the trial came, all the women showed up. Even though they moved the trial 20 miles away, they all walked the 20 miles to the village where the trial was. And now I'm going to tell you something very disturbing. When the trial started, one woman got up to say that she had been raped. And then a second woman did, and a third, and a fourth. And in India, criminal justice is not quite so orderly. They literally beat him to death in the courtroom. That's how much terror and sorrow and anger had built up in that village. Now, Kristof does not countenance the violence, but we can understand how year after year of being oppressed, terrorized, threatened, raped, and robbed could lead to a point where we no longer trusted the criminal justice system. Remember what I just described it. And so when it came time to try all the murderers, they all confessed. And you can't punish a village. Now, why am I telling you this story? Well, it's because Usha refused to go along, that the rest of the village found their courage. And I'm telling you that this is what prophecy is. It is not saying, "Woe unto you," and lightning bolts coming out of the sky. It is not waving a finger or having a long gray beard or any of that nonsense. It is speaking truth to power in the way that you know it must be spoken. Have you seen the bumper sticker? Speak the truth even if your voice cracks. Because the uttering of truth is what strengthens the people to claim it. And that is something all of us can do. What makes a prophet is not the stuff we heard, but the willingness to live and speak the truth that you see not being recognized. So when I go down to Occupy Grand Rapids, what I'm seeing are young adults saying, I don't care how the market is going to fix everything. I am out of a job. I don't care about taxes on the rich. I want health care. They are speaking the truth that they say matters, and everyone else says, oh, poo, 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 we'll work that out later. For them and for their lives right now, jobs, health care, housing, education, student loans that they cannot pay off are at the top of their list, and they're saying, this is true, you must pay attention to us. That is a prophetic act. Now I'm going to put the question to you. What is your prophecy? We all have one. We all know a truth that others would rather ignore. It could be a simple truth. Maybe it belongs between you and your family, or maybe it has to do with something in your workplace. Doesn't matter. We all suppress some truths because we want to keep the peace. We all do it, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But anytime a truth is not spoken, not lived, not acknowledged, deceit becomes part of the world. What truth, what prophecy is in your life? Because you see, everyone is a prophet. Yes, would to God that all God's people were prophets. When you free your mind, as we try to do here, what happens is you begin to see truths you didn't see before. You see them, and not only the ones you saw, but you begin to realize other people see different truths than you. Men realize women see the world differently than we do, and it's time for us to pay attention. White folk know that black folks see the world differently, and they are telling the truth, even if it's different from the truth we know. The disabled know that the able-bodied don't see the world the way they do, and they need to see that. The poor know that the world is not exactly the way the rich want it to be. You know where I'm going here. All of us live in a context that is different from someone else, and we need to share that truth. We may share it in words, we may share it in acts. It doesn't matter. We are each called to bring the truth we know into the marketplace, into the forum, into the world itself, so that the ignorance that all of us have can be dispelled. That's what liberating your mind is all about. And guess what? When you learn that truth you have not learned before, you can't keep your soul in the same spot anymore, can you? Like the Grinch, your heart begins to get too large for its space. That's what we call growing a soul, when suddenly you care about a poor person or a disabled person or a gay person. When you care about them than you hadn't before, your soul is growing. And the trouble is, once it gets larger than it was, it can't go back.